Connected.
Yes. Oh my
Got you.
God.
I got you.
How did this happen?
You know, it's my ability to use modern technology.
Oh my God. What the heck?
I got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. What was going wrong?
I don't know. I have no idea what went wrong.
Okay, but you're
Hopefully one of my kids plugged in the internet, right?
all right. You threw me for a tailspin there.
Right. I told you, we just fly by the seat of our pants.
Yes.
I
Oh my.
hope I hope we didn't delay people too long.
I know. So, one of the comments was maybe your internet is frozen solid in Minnesota since it's been so cold.
That could be very, very true. But today is a nice day. It's about 65. But we did have snow 3 days ago.
Really? Yeah. How many?
Yes. Last Sunday it snowed 5 inches, and then it snowed like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, off and on. We
Crazy.
had many blizzards throughout the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. So, anyway, Trent, thank you so much for, can you hear?
I can hear you.
Okay. Something was going wrong. Anyway, thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, no, it's so fun. And just a little introduction. How many years did you play in the NBA?
11 years.
11 years. Amazing. And it's kind of weird how we became friends, but how did we become friends anyway? Could you tell a little bit about our story?
I think back in the late 90s, I was doing a celebrity golf and tennis tournament. And I spent a lot of time playing tennis once I retired from basketball. And then I was working with the USTA Northern section here in Minneapolis. And we were just kind of talking about different celebrities that we would like to invite to see if they would like to participate. And all of a sudden, your name popped up. And I said, well, I don't know her personally, but I know who she is. I watched her play tennis on the pro tour for many of years. And then I just said, well, what, I give her a call and see if she'll take my call. And I asked her, would she be available to come up on a certain date? And you said you would love to. And ever since that day, you and I have become the best of friends.
I know. I'm so grateful for our friendship and for everybody out there. I call Trent all the time because he's obviously he's been through it all as an athlete, and but on the mental side, he's exceptional, and he's probably one of the sweetest people that I know in the world. So thank you for being such a great friend to me.
Same to you. Thanks for being a friend as well.
Yeah. So, but it was when I went and did your event, it was so fun, and we got to play tennis. And you're an amazing tennis player.
I still have a long way to go.
I mean, incredible ground stroke, incredible serve, and so tell me. Well, first of all, I want to tell you something.
Okay.
I know that there's a rule named after you.
Right.
Little something in common, sort of, not really. I don't have a rule, but they did make a rule because of me.
Okay.
So I know.
I would love to hear what that rule is.
Okay, well, you have the Trent Chucker rule, right?
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, 1990, Martin Luther King Day, I was playing for the New York Knicks and we were playing the Chicago Bulls. And it was the first year that they had gone to tenths of seconds on the game clock and the shot clock. And we had the ball with 1/10 of a second left to go. And we called a timeout. And we had designed a play for a lob pass to the front of the rim for Patrick Ewing. And I was supposed to be a decoy to go from the left corner to the right corner, hoping that Michael Jordan would follow me as if they was going to throw a quick pass to me for a quick shot. But Michael, being the smart player that he was, he read the play. So he took option number 1 away, and we didn't have option number 2. But I knew that Mark Jackson was up against the 5-second count. And I realized that I went up the baseline, up the sideline, and he turned and gave me a little flip pass and I shot the ball as quickly as I could. And the ball hung in the air for so long, it felt like that it was going to take all day before the ball got to the rim. And then it went in, and the game was over, and I could see Phil Jackson as clear as day right now, waving it off. Shot didn't count, shot didn't count. There's no way the person can get off a shot that quickly. At that time, the referees counted it. We got off the floor, got into the locker room as quickly as we could, all jumped in the shower to make sure that we didn't have to come back out. And I know they didn't want to see 12 guys on the basketball court without their clothes on. So the basket counted. That evening, CNN, at that time, they had a sports station, a sports department, ESPN, Fox, all of the major outlets got their stopwatches out. And everybody said, well, let's put our clock on to see, how quickly can you get a shot off with tenths of seconds left. And then they made the rule that it had to be 3/10 or more before you could catch and shoot. And so the late David Stern at that time, the commissioner, who has passed away now, he called me into his office one day and said, well, Trent, the shot really didn't count, but, we have to let it stand because we have no precedence. And I said, well, Mr. Commissioner, with all due respect, I beg to differ. He said, why is that? I said, the reason you and I are having this conversation today is because you saw a man make a shot in the 10th of a second. He said, Trent, get out of my office.
Nice. Wow, that's amazing. So now it's a Trent Tucker rule. That's impressive.
Well, the beauty of that shot, was it gave my team a chance to win a basketball game that day. Even though it's something that has gone down in the rule books, it's something that now will stand for a very, very long time. No one will never, ever be able to get a shot off in the 10th of a second. But the most important thing to me about that shot on that day, we beat the Chicago Bulls, and it gave my team a victory. And when you play at that level for so long, as any chance you get to get a victory they are very, very important because it's very, very hard to win at the highest level.
Absolutely. And people don't realize how hard it is to win. And I think sometimes they take that for granted.
Yeah, because the competition is so tough. You're playing against great athletes, who can do amazing things on the men and the women's side. And when you find yourself in the position, to win a game or to win a match, you have to take advantage at that time because you just never know. If you make that one critical mistake, and that opponent can jump on you so quickly and you can never recover.
Yeah. And what was it like for basketball? With tennis, momentum can change so quickly, just like that. Does that happen in basketball? Tell us a little bit about that, like the differences, because tennis, you play with like the highest level juniors, and you're a great player yourself. You play tournaments, and then tell us about like the difference between basketball and tennis for you.
Well, momentum is what it's all about. You can be in a basketball game where you can be up by 20, 25 in the third quarter and everything is going well. All of a sudden, you make 2 or 3 turnovers. They score 2 or 3 baskets. They start to gain that momentum. 3 or 4 minutes could be left in the third quarter. All of a sudden, now you find yourself only up by 12 or 14 points. The opponent now is saying, hey, we come out to start the fourth quarter. We get 2 or 3 baskets now. It goes from 14 to 8 with 9 minutes to go. We believe we have a chance to win this basketball game. So momentum is the key. Once you give a good team or a very good athlete, a sense of confidence that they have a chance to come back and win, and once they get on the roll, it's very, very hard to stop them. So when you get a lead and you jump ahead, you have to make sure that you continue to do all the things that you did before that got you in front.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think this happens sometimes? How the momentum changes? What do you think?
It's a mental thing. Sometimes, you forget to continue to do all the good things that got you into that position. And we all know that with professional athletes, collegiate athletes, or high school athletes, confidence, can come and go very quickly. Things can be going so well throughout a match or throughout a game, and you have one bad stretch or one bad play, and all of a sudden your confidence goes out the window, and you never recover. And that can be very devastating, for an athlete, because once you feel like that you cannot hold off your opponent, and they began to see that they began to gain control of the match or the game, there's no way to stop them. So it's all mental when you see someone begin to take control.
Yeah. And then when you lost momentum and you would end up losing again, how did you handle that afterwards?
Well, you just have to kind of take a step back and realize, okay, what was I doing right at that time, to get that lead? And then you kind of replay back in your head all the good things you were doing. And then you ask yourself, okay, what happened when I lost the momentum? Well, then I stopped doing the things that I should have been doing. I began to take shortcuts. I began to try things that I knew that I wasn't good at. And then I found myself out of rhythm. And when the game is moving very quickly and you lose that rhythm, sometimes it's hard to regain that rhythm. So you have to be able to analyze yourself as an athlete on why you're doing some things good and why some things went bad.
Mm-hmm. And that's such great advice. I always learn something every time I talk to you.
Yeah. Well, I still learn things from you as well.
Well, thank you. So, I mean, what do you think, like the team sport and versus tennis? Like, what do you like about the team, and what do you like about the individual?
Well, the team sport is that if you're not playing well, among the team, you have four other people, that can kind of pick you up, or someone can come in off the bench at any given time to maybe give the team a spark until you can get yourself back together. You have coaching, where now a coach can pull you to the side and they can kind of go over things once again to get you refocused and talk about some of the things that you need to do to get yourself back to playing well. Where in tennis, you rely on the practice time. And it's such a mental challenging game when you're out there, because all of a sudden when you're facing a player that can't miss and you're doing everything that you can do, all the shots that you said, I know this shot should work, but this player at that time is just playing unbelievable tennis. And how do you overcome that? How do you take a step back and stay with your game plan and not try to do something that you're not used to doing? And you see a lot of players, once their game plan is not going well early, they try to go to something else that they haven't done before. And if you abandon your game plan, then you really put yourself behind the eight ball.
Yeah. Do you think there's a big difference on how the mind works with the team and the individual? You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like it's a little different mentally, or no?
It's the same. It's the same. Even though when you're a part of the team, you're still out there as an individual, because you still want to make sure that you can carry your own weight.
Yeah.
If you're a catch and shoot guy who's supposed to knock down open jump shots, all of a sudden now when the offense runs this play, they get to option number 3, and it's your time to step up and perform. Well, that's your individual moment, to help the team. And if you're not able to make that shot, it can be tough for the team, because now the offense has broken down because you weren't able to deliver, and that can weigh on a person's mind in a negative way.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. When did you start basketball?
I started playing basketball about the age of 7. Having 3 older brothers, growing up in Flint, Michigan, who used to pound on me every single day. I mean, they used to beat me up all the time, knock me over, make me cry. I would go in the house, and my mother said, "Not, she said, I'm tired of you coming in the house and crying. If you don't want to do this, don't go back out there." But I kept going out there, and I kept going out there, and all of a sudden one day, they couldn't push me over again. They couldn't knock me around. And once I became stronger and big enough to deal with them, then they decided, hey, you know what? We don't want to play anymore. And I thought that was so unfair, because they never gave me a chance to get back at them.
So funny. And then, I mean, did you play other sports, or did you stick strictly with basketball?
I played baseball, and I tried football for a while. Football was just too physical for me. It was something I didn't want to do. But I was actually a better baseball player than I was basketball. And growing up in an inner city environment like Flint, Michigan, basketball was the number one sport. So after my junior year, I quit baseball to focus on basketball. And until this day, my high school baseball coach has never forgiven me.
Are you happy with your choice?
I am. I am. Basketball is such a wonderful team game. It, you have to be accountable on a daily basis, for the guys that you play with. And they expect so much out of you, not just on the court, but off the court as well, to make sure that you handle your business away from them so that they can count on you to be ready to play when it's time to toss the ball up. There's so many distractions that come with being a professional athlete, especially when you're away from your teammates. In a city like New York City, there's so many things to do. It's a city that doesn't sleep. And if you don't approach a big environment in the right way, you can lose sight on why you're there. And the one thing that I never wanted to do as an athlete was to disappoint my teammates.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I want to eventually get to, you won a championship with the Bulls with Michael Jordan in 1993. I want to touch base with that. But when did you realize that you could become a professional basketball player?
I knew I had a chance, after my freshman year in college.
Okay.
I was playing against, some of the guys, who were at the top of the Big Ten, because I played at the University of Minnesota in the Big Ten Conference, and I played against the likes of, Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas, and I realized that that I could compete against some of the best in the country, and then I realized that there was a path that I would have to take, and there was a road that I would have to travel to put myself in a position 3 years from my freshman year to have a chance to be drafted in the NBA. And you have to, distract. I mean, you have to subtract some things away, from the environment that you're living in. And it can be hard on a college campus, because nobody is watching you. Nobody's going to tell you what time you should go home. But you have to be focused and driven, on what you're trying to accomplish as an athlete. But not only for yourself, but also for your team. We had a pretty good team, and I knew that we could be Big Ten champions, and that was something that I was focused on. But I had to make sure that I did everything the right way on a daily basis to put our team in a situation to win.
Yeah. I mean, because I tried to go to Minnesota. It wasn't exactly a powerhouse basketball team, right, at the time, or was it?
Not at the time. We were starting over. In 1978, we had the #1 recruiting class in the country. Minnesota was known to always get the 7-foot type players, but they never got the good athletes. They couldn't get the 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" athletes, who could do, different things in a 94-foot setting. And in 1978, my head coach, Jim Dutcher, was able to attract players from all over the country. Now, just imagine, he was able to bring in 2 guys from the state of Florida, West Palm Beach and Miami, who had never seen snow before. And for him to be able to sell his program on how they could fit in and be a really, really big plus to what he was trying to accomplish over a 4-year situation was amazing by him. And we all came together. It took us some time to grow as a team. And by the time we became seniors, we were the best team in the Big Ten.
Wow. So really changed. Nice. Congratulations. You did. Mm-hmm. I know you love it there. You love the snow.
I love Minneapolis. It's a great city. But the biggest challenge, I think, my senior year was that, we were favored to win the Big Ten championship. And we kind of got off to a slow start. In the last 4 games of the conference season, we were 2 games out of first place with 4 games to go. And back then, they didn't have conference tournaments. And the NCAA pool was not 64 teams or 65 or 66 teams. It was only 32 teams. So you had to win, your conference championship to be invited to the big dance. So with 4 games to go, 2 games out, we had to go to 2 places on the road, but we hadn't won in about 20 years. The University of Michigan was the first stop on a Thursday night. They were a young team. We blew them out by 20. The Iowa Hawkeyes, they were in first place. First place, they lost to Illinois on that Thursday night. So now we were one game behind them, going into a very hostile environment. We were able to beat them in triple overtime on their home floor. And we had the confidence that we knew we could get the job done. It was going to be a tall task, but we had to run the table. We had to win 4 games in a row to win the Big Ten championship. And by having that experience and that togetherness as a basketball team, we were able to, to make that happen.
Awesome. Cool. That's great. So tell me a little bit about when you won the championship with Michael Jordan, when you were when you played with him with the Bulls. Can you tell us a little bit about him and playing alongside him and the difference between the rest of the field, like the way he was, the way he went about his business? Just give us some insight on what it was like.
Well, you're playing with the best every day. And all of a sudden now, for the first time, you get to see up close, how the best player prepares himself in practice, the work that he puts in, the demands that he puts on himself, and then, the expectation that, he puts on his teammates. Great players can be tough to play with, because, they expect so much of themselves. And then you have to ask yourself, what they're asking me to do, can I reach that level mentally? Mm-hmm. And to play with a player like Michael Jordan, it's a treat indeed. And it's because you know that every time you go out to play, you have a great chance to win. If you're up by 4 or 5 points with 3 minutes to go, you got the best player and he's going to close the game out. If you're down by 4 or 5 points with 4 minutes to go, we have the ability now to come back and win because we still have the best player. But the biggest asset of playing with a player like that is that he put the other players, the role players, the guys who play with him, in a position to be successful on what they do best. If you're a catch and shoot guy, you don't handle the basketball in terms of playing one-on-one, but you can shoot the basketball. He's the guy that can penetrate, break down the defense, and make that kick-out pass. Now he allows you to be a part of the offense. But you have to work at that craft every single day to make sure that you're the best at what you're supposed to do for this team. And if you can't knock down open jump shots when you're playing with a player like that, you put the team behind the 8 ball, because most games are going to be close. You're going to get the best every night from the opponent. And when it's your time to step up and deliver, you have to make sure that you've done your homework so you don't just let your teammates down.
I mean, did he put a lot of pressure on you? I mean, could you just feel it mentally every day in practice? What was it like?
Well, to be on a championship team, or you can't be a part of a championship team if you're not willing to accept the pressure that comes with it. And when you're on a team that is that good, it's pressure every day. You have to live with that pressure because it's very hard, not only to win regular season games or playoff games, but you're talking about winning the championship. You have to beat the best of the best along that journey. And in doing that time, when you're a part of that team, you have to believe that you are the best at what you're supposed to be doing. And that's what great players and great coaches expect, of the guys when they put that team together, that you have the confidence within inside of yourself that you can get the job done.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Like, would he yell at you or?
No, I mean, the competition is there every day. I mean, when you spend that much time with someone, you begin to get on each other's nerves. Mm-hmm. You argue, you fight, but at the end of the day, there's a respect and a passion, for the goal that you're trying to achieve. And you build wonderful friendships along the way that become life lasting. It's a bond that would never be broken. Because, and as you know, only so few players ever get a chance, to play at a very high level, whatever sport it may be. There are a lot of participants, only so few get to go. And I was one of the lucky ones that got a chance to go to the highest level.
Yeah, amazing. And you're still very good friends with Michael, right? Isn't he
We're still friends. I mean, that bond of being in that locker room, you know, trying to achieve that common goal that everyone has set for themselves, and to go to practice every day, you know, to be focused on the small details, you know, that's going to give you a chance to be successful. When you sit back and look at it, it's amazing on how the mind has to work. And you have to make sure that you're focused every time you go in there, because the margin for winning and losing is very thin. And the coaches are expecting, you know, you to be at your best. Because when an organization decides to put a team together, a championship organization for sure, they believe that you are one of the better guys. They believe that the reason we put you here is because we believe that you have championship pedigree, and you want to live up to that. But the pressure is there. It's fun pressure. It's great pressure. And I think all players, if they are lucky enough to get into a position like that, you know, they would love to deal with that type of pressure.
Was there anything, that you did to handle the pressure?
But you have to be, you know, you have to make sure that you take care of your craft, and you prepare every single day. You work hard at it. You make sure that you fine tune on all the things that you're supposed to do. You do your homework and practice. You know, game time is the test, and now you're prepared for it. If you haven't done your homework, then it's going to be very, very hard for you to produce, you know, when that moment comes. But if you've done everything that you're supposed to do up until that point, now you have the confidence to know that you can execute under pressure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. Um, do How do you feel like kids handle pressure these days?
Some kids handle it well. You know, it all depends on, you know, when you jump into a sport at a very young age. You know, you haven't had maybe enough experience, you know, under your belt right at the start, you know, to deal with the type of pressure, you know, to take a step back, to take a deep breath, and then refocus on yourself, refocus on yourself once again, and think about, okay, these are the things I'm supposed to do. This is what the game plan is all about. My coach and I sat down in practice and we talked about this player is going to do X, Y, and Z. And once you start to see them do this, this is how you counter. You know, can you free and relax your mind is the most important thing when pressure begins to build.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's why Federer plays so unbelievable, because he's so relaxed all the time. What do you think?
Right. You have to be able to calm yourself down and think your way through it. You know, there was one year I met Pete Sampras, and when I used to do television work for, you know, for the Timberwolves, you know, the NBA team here in Minnesota. We was out in LA, and he was kind of sitting in the stands behind me before the game started. I went up and introduced myself to him. He said, "Oh yeah, I remember you. I'm a basketball fan." And I asked him the question. I say, "Can you win not a match, but can you win a tournament if you're not at your best?" He says, "Yes." And I said, "Well, what's the mindset?" He says, "Well, Trent, the one thing I know that I can do as well as anybody on the tour at that time is I can serve. If I don't lose my serve, I'm always going to be, you know, in the game. So it's going to be 3-3, 4-4. And even if I'm not playing at my best, if I'm serving well, I can make 1 point here or there to make a difference. Then all of a sudden I win 7-5. So now I've taken the confidence away from my opponent, because they're believing that there's no way they can break my serve. And that can force them in a crucial situation, you know, to make a bad play.
Mm-hmm. So we have a question here.
Okay.
This is from Sloane Stevens' mom. Hi, Sybil. How are you? Thanks for joining.
Uh-huh.
Back. Can you think of anything you would have done differently in your training?
I think early on I would have trained differently, you know, because when you're young, you don't think that you have to put the extra time in is because you're young enough to recover. As I got older, I felt like I had to train harder in the off season and to condition my body differently so that I was well prepared for training camp. And when you're young, you think, well, I can just play my way into shape once training camp start. And I think that hurt me at the beginning is because I always got off to a slow start in the earlier part of my career. So what I learned, as I got into my late 20s and early 30s, I wish I had that mindset and the experience at that time when I was 21 or 22.
Hmm. Yeah. And now, I mean, the fitness is incredible now. There's so many ways to train, right? I,
I mean, you have to be in shape. I mean, there's no way that you can reach a certain level if you're not in tip-top shape. And some of the players I have trained, throughout the years with basketball, the one thing I focus on most when we first start is that I have to get them in tip-top condition. And once I can get them in a situation where they don't tire,
hmm.
we can practice longer, and now we can develop their skills even better. But once an athlete begins to tire, there's nothing else you can do. You just shut down your workout, get them off the field, get them off the court, because they are not going to be any good to you. And that's when bad habits, begin to seep in. And you want to make sure that, during your workout and your conditioning stages, that your athlete is ready to go physically. And when they're ready to go physically, good things can really happen for them.
Yeah. What about your nutrition? Were you pretty good on that side, or did you eat whatever you wanted to?
I was so bad when I was 21, 22. Practice would start at 10. I would get up at 9:15, jump in my car, drive, stop at McDonald's and get a sausage cheese sandwich on the
Eggs
way to
muffins?
practice. And it was so good at the time. But when you're young, your body is able to absorb that type of nutrition. But as I became older, like I mentioned before, I learned how to prepare my meals better, and I felt like that. I learned how to condition better and how to take care of myself better, and that allowed me to play a little bit longer at the NBA level.
Hmm. Yeah. So uh, how have you used your basketball experience for your life lesson? Like,
Well, basketball has taught me so much about life. Is the one I think the one most important thing it taught me is to how to be unselfish and how to be acceptance of others. Is because to be a good teammate, you have to be willing to sacrifice certain things to fit in with the group. There are going to be different talents on the team. There are going to be some players who are better than others. And you have to be able to let your ego go to figure out where you fit in, where you can help the team win. Everybody can't be Michael Jordan, and we all know that. But Michael Jordan still needs players like myself and others to help him win. And we have to be able to understand those things. Uh, the responsibility, of taking care of yourself off the court, because it means that you are so important, to your teammates. But it's a bond, that is special, because only so few guys ever get a chance, or young ladies to be a part of a team. And when you're considered good enough to be a part of this group, that is something that you can take with you for the rest of your life. But it's just the life lessons that you get, the experiences that you achieve from being a part of the team. But to me, the most important thing was I learned was how to become unselfish, but also learn to accept others from different walks of life. Because when you recruit to go to college, your teammate might be some kid from Mississippi that you've never seen or heard of before. Maybe he has never ever played, with an African American basketball player before. And so how do you figure out and find a way to coexist? The beauty of sports, it brings us all together. And the one thing that sports will always force us to do, especially in a team setting, is to communicate with one another.
mhm.
You may not know me at 18, and you might live in a small town in Louisiana. I might be from Flint, Michigan. You could be from Miami, Florida. But when we all come together and put on that same uniform, we are one.
Mhm.
And now, we have to figure out how to coexist together to make this happen. And once we began to open up the communication lines, then I learned something about you, that can help me grow as a person as well. So
Mhm.
to me, that's the beauty of team sports.
Mhm. I mean, I think that's what I miss about competing right now. I'm getting obviously older. I can't compete, but it's just growing as person every day. It really teaches you that. So
It can bring, it brings, the world together. When you look at high school athletes, especially here, like in the city of Minneapolis, a winning team can galvanize a city, a community, and a state. And it just shows you, the importance of what sports means, not only to a city or to a country or to the world, but it just brings us all together. And you talk about, the shot that I made to kind of change the rules in the NBA. On that day, there was so many different walks of lives in Madison Square Garden. And we all know that New York City is a melting pot. But at that moment, nobody cared where you came from. Nobody cared what you looked like. Nobody cared what type of clothes you had on. At that moment, the only thing they cared about is that they were a Knicks fan. They were a Knicks fan. They were slapping high fives with people and hugging each other. If you can just put that in a bottle and sprinkle that throughout the world, then that would be a wonderful thing for all of us to see.
Yeah, that's so cool. What a moment, huh?
Yeah. And a lot of my teammates I still talk to today. We still sit down and talk about, some of the things that, that we had to go through, and kind of look at some of the young players who are playing in today's game. And we just marvel at the wonderful talent, that we are seeing in guys like, LeBron James and James Harden and Stephen Curry, just to name a few. They are so much fun to watch. They bring a certain amount of special talent to the court every single night. And as an ex-basketball player, I believe that the NBA, are in good hands,
Yeah,
with these guys.
I know they're really fun to watch. And I got to see your special bonding with all your friends by coming to your event and meeting so many of them, and they're wonderful. So thank you for that. I miss coming.
It was a fun time, and as I mentioned, the NBA now is in good hands with all these players, but to be able to, to host a charity event, to raise funds for inner city kids, to promote early college awareness among middle school kids, and just to have a person like yourself, along with all the other celebrities who came into Minneapolis during that time, to lend their support, meant so much, to all the young people that we were trying to serve.
Yeah.
And you can just see at the end of the day, the excitement and the sense of hope that they felt for the first time, knowing that life could be different. And it takes a lot of people to come together, to help someone overcome certain things. It takes a lot of people to come together for someone to believe that things can be different. And I thank you, along with all the other people who came during that time, to really inspire and give these young people a sense of hope.
Oh, it was fun. It was super fun. Who do you like watching on the young tennis players now that are coming up? Like, who are your favorites, men and women?
Oh, Coco Gauff was an inspiration. I love watching Sloane Stephens play. Serena and Venus for sure. There's so many wonderful young talents who are out there today. One of my all-time favorite players was Ann Grossman for sure. And I used to love watching Martina Hingis play. I really enjoyed watching her play.
Why did you like watching her?
For someone to be that young at the age of 16, to have such a demand of her talent and control out there on the biggest stage, where she had become, a champion. That's very hard to do, to win a major. And for her to be able to do that at the age of 16 or 17, that was wonderful to see. The talent was there, the hands, the ground strokes. She didn't have the big serve, but her overall game was so good. But I think, that, the American players on the female side is moving and trending in the right direction. When you see a young Coco Gauff step up, and what Sloane Stephens has been able to do, I believe that women's tennis in the United States is in good hands.
Yeah, I think we're really incredibly strong.
Yeah.
We're in a great spot.
And on the men's side, you're hoping that, who's going to be the next American player to step up.
Yeah,
It
do you know
seems,
anybody?
it's, I don't know. I haven't watched it as closely as I did in the past. One of my all-time favorite American players, other than Pete Sampras, was John McEnroe. And I got to know John McEnroe very well when I was playing for the Knicks. And I used to love to watch him play tennis. His serve and volley, his chip and charge, and his ability to get to the net with those great hands. To me, he was perhaps one of the all-time greats. He didn't last as long as some of the guys on the tour who are lasting today. Because the conditioning is different. Their travel arrangements are a whole lot better. There's probably more money on the tour, but some of the top players now, the accommodations are a lot easier to deal with compared to 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
The top players back then, they didn't have private jets.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're able to make the type of money that guys are making today, it can extend your career, is because you can have more players now in your camp, to help your body recover quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big difference. And I mean, I think, how do you feel about sometimes former players are bitter about the money that they could have made? And how do you feel about that? I mean, you had an incredible career. You probably would have made like at least over 35 what you did, right?
It's the sign of times. When I came in, the money that I was making, was very, very good money. The guys who came before me, they probably would say, "Hey, I wish I was making the money
Yeah.
that you guys are making." So at that time, the cost of living was right on par with the money that I was making. Now the guys are making more money, but inflation has taken over.
Yeah.
Guys today who make 12, 13, 14 million, 25, 30 million dollars, when they go out to buy a house, they're not going to buy a house that costs $200,000.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to buy the house that now is going to cost them 5, 6, 7, or 8 million bucks. And so, the cost of living is in line for what these guys are making today. I am very happy for all players in all sports, to be able to make the type of money that they're making, because they deserve it. They have put the hard work in. They have put the time and the energy and the effort, to become, the best at what they do. And they should be well rewarded for that. And it's nice to see, that these organizations are doing that for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So getting back to a little bit more tennis, um, who's your favorite player to watch now?
But my favorite player to watch is Roger.
Okay.
Yeah. To see what what he has been able to do with his comeback. When he had doubt with the knee injury, not knowing if he could ever get back to the top, and he struggled to beat Nadal. And he just felt like that he could beat everybody else, but there was this one guy he just could not overcome. And when you go through a stretch like that as an athlete, you begin to ask yourself, can I ever beat this guy again? Will I ever be able to do this? I'm doing everything I'm doing everything within my power. I'm doing everything possible. And this guy is still good enough to beat me. And you can lose a sense of confidence, and you can lose a sense of desire, but for him to come back and win that Australian Open, I think it was in 2017, after being down 3-1 in the fifth set, that gave him a sense of achievement and accomplishment that he could never imagine. Because as great as Roger has been throughout his career, I have to believe there was a period of time that he never thought he could get back to this moment.
Yeah, it's incredible. He's an incredible ambassador for the game as well. Not only a great player.
Right, but he's a great example for all the young players to take a look at. The talent is there, but for him to have to overcome something mentally, when many people are saying that you are the greatest player in the world, to be willing to go back and try it over again, when you knew that you have failed over the last 4 or 5 times. And there was no sense that Rafa was going to slow up. He wasn't slowing down. He was gaining momentum. He was as tough as ever. And now you're going to put yourself in this arena one more time. You're going to go back to the drawing board one more time to give yourself another shot. And for him to overcome that, I think that's a testament to his mental toughness. But also, it's an example for a lot of young players to look, is that you might bend, but you don't break.
I like that. Good. What about women? Who's your favorite?
I've always enjoyed watching Serena play. She's perhaps been one of my all-time favorite, female athletes. Growing up where she came from and not really being a part of, the tennis circle at a young age. And many people can doubt you when you are not a part of that group, that elite group. Mm-hmm. And her father took a lot of grief, during that time on how he was able to raise his 2 daughters, Venus and Serena. And for them to become, the best at a sport, that they were not a part of at a very young age has been amazing to see. And for her to be able to stay on top, to endure with that pressure on a yearly basis, because the competition is tough. That, and tennis is different than basketball because you're competing with so many different people from around the world, who have their target set on knocking you off. And for all the different climates and the different countries and the different foods you guys have to eat on a yearly basis, I just don't know how you guys are able to maintain to play at a high level. Basketball players, we don't have to go through that. And for you guys to be able to make those adjustments with all those different environmental changes and still stay at the top, that's special to see.
I think it's incredible. I don't know if you saw Novak and yesterday on Instagram, but they spoke about how, he just won Olympic gold, and then he went to try to play. He was on grass, then he went to Toronto to play, and a completely different surface, time change. And you just win the Olympic gold, and 2 days later you're trying to play in Toronto. So it's actually incredible what the players do.
Right. I mean, I'm a creature of habit, and before every game, I ate the same thing. I couldn't imagine if I had to play in London, and now I got to go play in Paris, and I got to go play in Australia.
Asia.
I got to go play in Asia. And all of a sudden now, the food that I'm used to eating for my pregame meal is no longer there. I don't know if I could have made those adjustments, because basketball players, we are superstitious, and we like to do things on a certain way, and we eat the certain foods all the time. But
at the time, right?
At a particular time. So you're asking me now to make those huge adjustments. Would have been very hard for, I would say, a lot of basketball players to make. So that's why, I have such great respect, for tennis players, who are able to make those adjustments on a yearly basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I think people don't realize, number one, how tough our sport is. I think
it's a very tough sport.
It is because you play it. And and I think that it's so easy for people to be so critical.
Well, because like I said, everybody's not going to be Roger Federer. Everybody's not going to be Novak Djokovic. Everybody's not going to be Rafael Nadal. Those guys can lose the match in the semifinal. They jump on a private jet, they take off. But the guys on the regular tour who are not at that level financially, they got to book a commercial flight to get from one country to the next.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of different elements that they may have to deal with just to get from one tournament to the next tournament. Well, and that is very hard to deal with.
Well, the top men now, they have their jets and they're flying, if they're in Europe, they're able to use it, or in the States. But the women don't have private jets.
Right. Right. So a lot of the players don't have the same accommodations that other players may have. And, on the men and the women's side, to make those adjustments.
It's pretty critical.
it's hard. It's very hard. And for people who don't understand all the things that tennis players go through, they need to take a step back and just realize and have a conversation with a player who's at that level and talk to them about some of the things they have to deal with on a daily and a monthly and a yearly basis.
So are you saying that you think tennis is the toughest sport?
I think travel-wise it is for sure. I think it is. I mean, because you're changing time zones, you're changing climates. Well, I'm asking you to adjust to different foods,
The surface.
and you got to have passports to go everywhere. You got to make sure all that stuff is organized. And if you lose your passport somewhere, you can't get out of some country to get to another place. The beauty of being a basketball player, I don't have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Your coach carries a passport for you if you did travel out of the country.
Right. And, if you don't have a coach, then you got to go into a city, hope that you can find somebody to hit with. And
It's so
and can you find someone who's at a high enough level that you can hit with so that they're going to get you prepared for the match that you're going to play maybe a day or two from now?
yeah, it's Eric is on. He says, "Do not tell the Japanese visa story." But well, because I have a funny story. When Eric was traveling with me, and we were in Australia, I said, "You need to go get. We're going to Japan. I need to go get this. So take our passports and go to the Japanese embassy." He's like, "What? How do you do that?" "I don't know how to do that." I'm like, "You don't know how to do that? You're a Michigan grad. You know how to do this." Because I didn't go to college. I turned pro at 17. So he's the smart guy. I'm just the jock. And anyway, it was kind of a funny story. But
yeah, we don't know how to do that kind of stuff. I mean, this is not a part of our regular routine. We need to figure out passports. I mean, I've traveled outside of the United States, but I was nervous as heck because I was holding on to my passport for dear life. And I could lose everything else, but just don't lose that passport.
I lost my passport in Japan too. Actually, I lost it. Yeah, that was not a fun day for me.
No, I can only imagine.
No, it was bad. I want to know, what's your favorite tournament to watch? Tennis tournament to watch? What do you like?
I enjoy the French Open.
Really?
I really enjoy the French Open.
Why?
It's a mental grind for all the players. It's a really mental grind because you never know what the weather conditions are going to be like.
That's true.
You can get a cool day, you get a hot day, you get a windy day, and if the clay is playing slow, you're hitting big shots after big shots after big shots, and it's just so hard to put the ball away.
Yeah.
And who has the mental toughness to grind, to stay out there, shot after shot, day after day, to endure the physical and emotional pain that you're going to deal with trying to win a match. So to me, I really enjoy watching the French Open.
That's interesting. I'm surprised you didn't say the U.S. Open because playing in New York is one of the toughest places to play. Just managing everything like it was for you when you
Yeah.
picks.